It's time for another episode of Love, Marriage, and Fantasy. I am Star Claiborne.
And I am Anton Leonard Claiborne, and we are your global relationship strategists.
We live our marriage on the guided principle no one or no thing.
So, take some time, listen as we make sense of all of this. This is the episode you want to listen to if you and your spouse are arguing constantly or you're fighting back and forth over minor things. In this episode, we're gonna talk about fighting and your perception of it. We're gonna talk about how disrespect starts when you're not listening. We're going to talk about comprehension and how important that is. We're also going to talk about the right questions that should be asked. We're going to talk about the concept of agreeing to disagree. We're going to talk about clarity and progress during a heated discussion. Y'all sit back, listen to this episode that could help you avoid unnecessary arguments. Star,
Yes, sir.
how are you?
I'm making it.
Make it happen, baby. Make it happen, baby. So listen, I was on Twitter on my Anton Talk Sex page, and I saw this very interesting tweet. So I figured, I would share this with our audience, and this would be a good way for us to segue into our topic. So this tweet came from Princess Janitor, and she said, "Can we stop acting like couples don't fight, especially if they're famous? Fighting and arguing is normal and healthy in every relationship. And we all know it can happen anywhere about any subject, and that's not the signifier of being a toxic or horrible person." Now, considering that our topic is healthy debate versus arguing, what do you feel about that tweet there? Like, how do you feel about that?
Well, first, I think she's right when she says that, well, let me back up. The word fight is the one word that I probably am kind of opposed to because in my mind, I don't see fight as verbal. I see fight as physical.
Okay.
So, fight in a physical sense, no, but it doesn't seem like that's what she's referring to. So I don't want to I don't want to have my perception put on that tweet right now. But as far as arguing, yes, couples do argue. However, and celebrity couples too. And I know that the media plays a big part in us thinking that, well, it's kind of funny because you can't really say they play a big part in us feeling like marriages are perfect either, because as many reality shows that are out there now, they're not exactly painting a perfect picture of marriage. They're only painting that perfect picture of money. I have the money, I can get what I want, I can do what I want, but not necessarily a perfect picture of marriage. But I absolutely agree with her that, couples have disagreements. As far as arguing, our topic being tonight, healthy debate versus arguing, I think there's a sense of, is it necessary to argue? And if you are going to argue, I feel that those things do need to be done in the privacy of your home or somewhere outside of the public view. What happens and what you're going through with your partner is it's not everybody's business.
True.
Not because it paints a perspective from the public eye. It's just not everybody's business. You need to keep the things that are happening in your home because it can cause a lot of outside and unneeded chatter. as
Right.
to, and when I say unneeded chatter, again, it's not what you think about my marriage, because I could care less what you think about my marriage if I know that we're good. It's more of unneeded chatter about what you feel I need to do for my marriage when I know we're good over here, and all the unwanted opinions without knowing the facts.
Right. And you made a really good point when you brought up the thing you said about not being out in public and putting your business out in public. It reminded me of one of the discussion points that we were going to address today, and I'm talking about the point of disrespect, how disrespect starts with not listening. I think that especially when you're out in public, it's a clear indicator that you're not listening once the argument begins. Because if you were listening, you would be able to recognize that, hey, uh, their tone of voice is changing, right?
Correct. Correct.
And this might be, this could be heading towards an argument. And you can only notice, the change in the tone if you're actually listening to what they're saying.
Right.
Right. So, in that regard, as far as not listening, of course, it's going to lead to, um, that person once they realize you're not listening, of course, they're going to start feeling disrespected because
Right.
they're going to think that, okay, this is a serious moment and you're not even listening to what I'm saying.
Right. But I think, and actually it's funny because I tell people no matter what you do, there's always a lesson in everything. And you can pull something from every aspect of your life. And this came from one of my jobs. When they say, when you're actively listening, you're really listening to understand and not to respond.
Right.
But at the same time, there are a lot of people, and honestly, I never heard that before I heard it from my job.
Really?
I never heard that before.
I had.
Right.
I had learned that communication doesn't just doesn't involve talking, but also listening. But
Right.
what most people do is they listen, waiting for their chance to
To
respond.
respond. Exactly.
Yeah.
And what I wanted to say in reference to that was, again, I know I've heard about having great communication, making sure that you communicate all the time. And yes, I've heard, you need to make sure that you're listening. That's a part of the communication to have good, effective communication. But as far as going a step further and saying active listening is to understand and not to respond, you have a lot of people who don't understand that concept. So when you grow up and you're not understanding that concept, it then can cause a problem in your relationship because you don't know what that is.
Right.
So you have relationships that are happening where people just want to respond. They say that they're listening, but they're really not actively listening. They hear you. They hear what's coming out of your mouth, and unfortunately, they hear parts of it.
Right. Right. But
So
someone growing up in an environment like that where they're not being taught how to listen, um, is it really the parents' fault that the child who has now become an adult does not know how to communicate, does not know how to, you know, actively listen? Because as an adult, at some point, we have to take some responsibility for ourselves
and that's exactly
and
what I was
start
about to
saying,
say.
okay,
So
I need to get better with my comprehension of what, let's say they're in a relationship. They would say, I need to get better at comprehending what my, spouse is saying to me because that's an important part of our relationship, me taking time to understand what this person is saying to me.
right,
But so then at what point, do we say, let's not blame the parents, or let's not blame the way that this person was raised, but put the blame on that individual. You're an adult now. You can't say because I wasn't raised. I mean, you should stop saying because I wasn't raised in a household where they practice active communication, I struggle with it now as an adult. But now as an adult, you're, in your late 30s or early 40s, but you're still struggling with communication. I can accept that, especially if you're a career person. I mean, when do we stop allowing the upbringing to be a crutch? Do you know? Do you have an idea?
Oh.
Because I'm just asking because
No, I'm trying to respond.
Go ahead.
So, do we blame it on the parents? We don't blame it on the parents.
No, I'm not saying do we blame it on the parents. No, I'm just trying to clear up my question. That's all. Okay, go ahead. I was just trying to make sure that you understand what the question was. But go ahead.
We cannot say all the time that it's the parents' fault because, as you were saying when I was trying to respond, that when you become an adult, you have to take responsibility for your own actions. And one of the things that all the listeners need to understand for sure is that you need to have continuing education. Now, when you say looking into the career path, well, right now, careers are not teaching you anything. So you're not learning anything in the career field. You're not learning much of anything anymore because they don't have trainings and the things that they used to have before. So it's unfortunate for those coming up now. But you have to remember too that as children, we do what we see. We do what we see until someone tells us or shows us that there's a better option, right? And but at the same time, if your parents didn't know how to communicate, how can they teach you? It's up to you to go out there and venture on your own and try to do better for yourself. So you can't really blame the parents for what's happening to you now. But I think a lot of people don't want to admit that they just don't know everything. If someone comes and they say, well, I know how to listen, and you start having a conversation with them about it, and it begins to get into a conversation, and you're just exchanging information, sometimes a lot of people just automatically get on the defense instead of trying to, again, listen to see what they can pull from it to help themselves. So I think, one of the key takeaways from this is when you're out there, instead of saying that you grew up this way or this is what you were taught or this is what you didn't know, anytime you're having a conversation with someone, anytime you're reading something, anytime you're watching something, when you're at work, always look at it as an opportunity to see what you can pull to make yourself better. Because the things that you learn at work can be applied to your everyday life. The things you learn in your home can be applied to your job. They can be applied to your friendships out there. So there's a lot of things that you learn in different situations and with different people if you just really listen and understand what's going on and try to get a different perception instead of always feeling like, no, what I know is all. That's it. And that's where it stops. And I think that's where the problem is. So when you talk about the active listening, I think it does come from the fact that some people, they don't know how to do it because they weren't taught, but they're also not trying to do anything about it because they feel as though this is what they were taught in the past and that's what it is.
It's time for another social media break. Y'all ready for this round of the fun and fast social media break? So what we do is we just scroll through our social media profiles looking for relationship issues and situationship issues. Star, you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, the timer is starting now. All right, Twitter is.
Don't call me angry or crazy for speaking up. The good don't stay in situationships, only the desperate do.
Yeah.
You gotta be able to recognize the situationship.
Right.
Toxic.
Here's one. I'm mid-30s and still learning how to properly date. Hell, I was starting to get used to microwave relationships.
Interesting.
Yeah. Situationships are like that. They heat up quickly like something you're cooking in the microwave. Here we go. Here's one. Fuck all these half-ass relationships / situationships. Life too damn short to waste time on meaningless fuck shit.
Yep.
Sound like somebody's been burned.
Let's see.
Here we go. Y'all gotta stop with this mentality. That's how y'all got stuck in toxic situations. Wait, y'all gotta stop with this foolish mentality. That's how y'all got stuck in toxic situationships, and y'all be hurting yourself in the end. And what they was talking about, somebody posted, "I'm not leaving you alone until he's dead." that is a twisted mentality.
Yeah. Here's one. No, fuck you. I was good enough, but you made me believe I wasn't.
Oh, bye. Bye.
Real talk. Real
right.
talk.
Here's one. I ain't doing no situationships in 2020. I ain't doing no situation right. Miss me with all that bullshit. Either we together or we not. 100.
Being a cute couple is easy. Being a healthy couple over a lifetime will be the fight of your life.
Wow. Yeah, that's real talk right there. That should be a goal of every relationship. Being a healthy couple. What we got? Most populated places in the world: China, Friend Zone, Saltyville, Situationships, and India.
Stop fucking with people who don't reciprocate the same level of energy as you. Your time is valuable.
Wow, that's a good way to end it. All right, y'all. We hope you got something from this social media break. We'll do it again in the next podcast. Let's get back into the discussion. Yeah. Well, so, I think if we took the time as adults to pay attention to what we're learning, about communication from day to day, we'll soon realize that some of the issues that we have with communicating can be solved if we just took a moment to ask the right questions instead of just blurting things out just because that's what came to your mind. We took some time just to make sure we're asking the question that will help give us the information that we want versus just, like I said, just saying something because you're reacting to what the person you're talking to just said. But asking the right questions is not something that everybody knows how to do either.
No, it's not. But Again, in the hopes that, whoever is listening to this, they're taking this information and saying to themselves, you know what are those right questions? How do I get to that? How do I allow myself to, um, what's even blocking me from wanting to be that active listener, or um, what's stopping me from furthering my own education? Like, is there even something within you that's stopping you? You
Right.
know. But yes, when you're in I mean, this is for any type of communication, but when we're talking about the healthy debate versus the arguing in your relationship, you do have to have those right questions. I know, I know in our relationship, you can say some things and I might walk away feeling a little bit like something, but then I have to come back and say, okay, wait a minute. So are you saying this? You know,
Right.
so that I can make sure that that my perception is not what the reality is. That my
Correct.
perception is not, because I would say about 90% of the time it's really not what it is. You walk away with this perception, but when you ask the right questions, you realize that's not what it is.
Right.
So, knowing what those questions are and making sure you're getting clarity is the biggest key to that. And arguing is, to me, arguing is, why do you have to be loud? Why do you have to call each other out of each other's names? Why do you
Mm-hmm.
have to use terms that are just so out there with one another instead of just having a conversation? And healthy debate is that agreeing to disagree, right?
That is the
Healthy
agreeing to
debate
disagree.
is agree to disagree. You're not going to agree on everything, but that doesn't mean it has to be an argument.
Right. 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 And I think that healthy debating. Uh, I think that a lot of people have no idea what it is. They don't know how to agree to disagree.
Right.
It's either I'm right or you're wrong. And that alone causes tension because somebody's going to start feeling like, hey, wait a minute. Why do I have to be right? I mean, I'm sorry. Why do I have to be wrong? Why can't you be wrong and I be right? You know, but in feeling that way, uh, that basically all this comes down to is poor listening skills. When you really think about it,
It is poor listening skills, but
it's
it
just
does come down to asking the questions too.
right.
But
Yeah, it
even
does come down to asking the questions because all of this can be solved with just taking time to listen to what is being said to you, and then understanding that everybody's not going to agree on everything.
they're not, and making sure that your ego is not in the way.
Yes.
Because I can tell you, for
Oh, that good
myself,
ego.
when it comes to making a decision, 9 times out of 10, and anyone who knows me, they've heard me say this. Okay, well, if Anton says that this is what we're gonna do, this is what we're gonna do, because 9 times out of 10 he's right, right? Like, and I'm okay with that because you analyze things differently from me, and I
Right.
accept that. I am a woman, and I accept the fact that sometimes I might respond off of emotion, especially when it comes to buying. So when it's time to make those purchases, women, right? You won't always be right, okay? So make sure your emotions allow the person who has the better judgment to make the better judgment and be okay with it. It doesn't have to be an argument. And you may feel that, okay, you're not sure, but if, like I said, in our relationship, when Anton speaks, about 90% of the time, it's what it is, and it turns out to be what it's supposed to be. Versus if I were to make the decision sometimes based off of my emotions, it is not what was best for us. It was not what was best for the entire household. So come down off the egos of whether why does he or she have to always be right? Because you're not. No one person will always be right.
Correct.
You have to be able to really feed off of one another and know Yes, you trust that the other person is going to make the right decision, but there are questions that even internally you have to analyze when making decisions.
Right.
So it doesn't have to be an argument.
Wow.
And
Yeah,
what do they,
it does not have to be an
you
argument. It
know,
can just turn into a healthy debate.
and let me say this about the debating and the arguing. What just came to mind was when people argue, they argue and it's like yes, no, but there's no real facts and backup to it. When people debate, they're able to give proof. They're able to
True.
say, this is why I feel that this should not happen or that this should happen. And that's the way that it should be. Because
Right. Because
unless
that
you can
helps
provide some
create the
other
clarity.
insight to what's happening, you're going to always have that argument. And you're going to always feel like you can't agree to disagree. I would not be able to agree to disagree if you didn't always come to the table with some type of fact, right? Like you've got to give me something to analyze, right? Like you took the time to analyze the situation. Now I need to take time to analyze it.
Right.
So think about it in that manner. You know, healthy debate is when you're having that conversation and you're not agreeing on something, start figuring out why is this not best for the next step? You know, why is it not best for the family? Why is it not best for the relationship? And discuss that versus just this is not what it needs to be.
Right. And if you do that, that will help reduce uh, the possibility of either of you becoming emotional and then your ego getting involved in this discussion.
Yes, because a lot of it comes down to because I don't want to, that's an argument.
Yes.
Because
Right.
when you decided to get in a relationship, it's no longer about what you want to do all the time. And again, you'll hear us say this a lot. We do believe in you being that individual, but you still have to make decisions that are going to be best for the entire family, for everybody involved in the situation. You have to make sure that that is happening and
Right.
that it's not affecting the overall picture of things.
And if you,
So,
yeah. So going into any discussion with that mindset of making sure you do what's best for everybody involved, it will reduce the chances of anything becoming an argument, especially in an argument where you guys can't come to some type of terms.
prove yourself.
Right. You prove
Prove
yourself.
yourself. You may not want to go to the mountains just because you don't want to go, but your partner might want to go to the mountains because that's something they've always wanted to do. Okay, well, you really need to sit down and analyze the situation as to why don't you want to go?
Yeah.
Why do you want to go? How can this help us? How can this not help us? Right?
Right.
So, you need to really look at those things and ask those questions.
It'll make a big difference. Okay, so um, I think that we've covered some good points on this
Absolutely.
healthy debate versus arguing. I think that our listeners will be able to uh, listen to this podcast and go back to their partners and maybe have some healthy discussions on arguing. Right? What do you think?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, just to kind of touch back on Prince's janitor over there.
Right.
Fighting, no, not necessary. Arguing, not necessary. Disagreements, you'll always have disagreements. And I think that's what she was trying to, I think that's what she was trying to put out there.
Mm-hmm.
But, anything beyond that healthy debate, um, even with that, a lot of that can stay in the privacy of your home. Everyone doesn't need to know everything because you don't want all that unnecessary conversation.
That's right, because those unnecessary conversations could possibly lead to fighting.
Right.
That's what you don't want.
And it could be a huge distraction to your relationship, and you don't want that. You don't want that because inside you know that you and your mate are good. You know that you're good. It's just a disagreement that you're having.
Yep, that's it. Being able to say, okay, well, we just disagree on this. That's one good thing that you can do for your relationship that'll help your relationship last longer. Just being able to say, okay, we disagree, now let's move on.
And when you come to the disagreement, you have to think about um, you have to ask the question like, is all of this even necessary? Like, whatever we're having this debate or this discussion about, is it even necessary? Like, there's so much tension coming from it. Is it really that serious?
That is a fact.
And one person has to be that person to say it's really not that serious. Let's just move forward.
Yeah, one person has to step up and be that voice of reason, and decide whether or not this heated discussion is even worth the effort.
Yep.
So if you feel as though you're that person in your relationship, and you feel as though you would be willing to, you know, take that on as your responsibility, then you should do that. But let your partner know that that's the responsibility that you're going to take on in a relationship, as far as you being the voice of reason when the two of you may be disagreeing on something.
Okay, I have something to say to the women on that.
No, okay, I mean that's
No,
fine, but
that's good.
I
No, that's good.
was just pointing out that you don't want to just take on that responsibility without informing your partner that that's what you're doing. Because when if you don't inform them, but then you proceed to do it, they're gonna feel like you're trying to dominate the conversation. You don't want that to happen. You want them to know, hey, I've taken on this role as being the voice of reason. So let me just kind of slow things down a little bit, or whatever your process might be. But you want to remind them that, you're doing what you said you were going to do as far as being the voice of reason.
Yes, but for women, I know having conversations with women out there, I hear a lot of you say, why do I have to always be the one to step up and do this and do that? When you're in a relationship, you shouldn't feel that way. When you're in a relationship and you feel like, you have to be that person to say, you know what, this is not what we need to be doing, or constantly bringing things to his attention, just do it and be happy that you're able to do that in your relationship and your relationship is still standing. Because it's, again, what if you're questioning why do you always have to be that person? Internally, there's some dissatisfaction and unhappiness there that you need to really work on, because it goes deeper than that. So, if you're going to be that person, don't go out talking to your friends saying, oh, why do I have to do this? And why do I have to always be that person? Why doesn't he just be that person? Why can't he just do that? Well, maybe y'all need to have a discussion about that, because now there's something again that's between you and your husband, and you're shining negative light on your husband and your mate, and that's not what you want to do.
Correct.
And I hear it all the time.
You do not want to be that person who shines negative light on your relationship. It would not be a good look for you. And it could lead to more heated debates, or I'm sorry, heated arguing, and fewer healthy debates.
And unwanted chatter from your supposed to be friends who are supposed to be listening to you, but yet in their mind they're telling you all this other stuff and the reason why you don't need to be with them. So pay attention.
Right.
If you're gonna be that person, be that person in a relationship. Just be the person, and everybody doesn't have to know everything. Be proud of your relationship. Be happy in your relationship. If you're not happy, talk about it. Work out what's happening, but don't put the negative light on your relationship like that.
And it's going to take some practice, but you need to understand that perfection takes longer than progress. With practice, you'll be able to make progress, and then eventually, through the progress, you'll reach perfection. You'll have that ideal relationship that you've always wanted. But until you reach that stage of perfection in your relationship with your partner, focus on progress. How's that sound?
Sounds good.
Sounds good to you? Sounds good to me. I hope we've said something that helps you all out there. We will talk to you next time. You want to say bye, Star?
Bye.
I just knew she was
See
gonna
ya.
say. I just knew she was gonna say bye, Star. Okay, y'all.
We'll see ya. Well, we won't see you, but we'll talk to y'all on the next episode.
That wraps it up for another episode of Love, Marriage, and Fantasy.
Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel at Claiborne Coaching. Download the podcast Love, Marriage, and Fantasy, and look us up on Facebook at Claiborne Coaching.